welcome to another edition of the Get Inside Me show, where I am your host, Ms. Patu Loca, and my co-host today is Miss Markeisha.
Hey.
Markeisha Williams to be exact. And, of course, Tomi is the reason that this conversation is taking place. Say hi, Tomi.
Hi.
Tomi brought onto my attention this article that she had shared this article and happened to tag me on it. And in the article I was reading, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. I'm really feeling this article. And before I go into this, because that's what I'm looking for, I know a lot of you guys probably think I have a problem reading, or I am challenged. But in all fairness and in all honesty, if you've actually created and did a Hangout, it is so hard because you're not allowed to have so many boxes. You're only allowed to have just that page open. That's how so many times you'll hear echoing in other shows and stuff, because people had their actual event page playing. So as we're talking, it's repeating because the show is playing as they're watching it. It's like you're on the air at a radio station, but you have the radio on. Like, right. So as you guys see, this device right here is my cell phone, and normally what I do, since I'm not allowed to have any other tabs open, what I normally have to do is just go ahead and click and, or copy paste and read it off of my cell phone, because sometimes my texts come out kind of crazy. And the crazy thing was, when I ended up doing that, a lot of times I'm reading, but because some of you guys are commenting or sending me a message or want to share something, it knocks me off. So I'm like, and I'm scrolling trying to find it. And so I'm letting you guys know right now, I am not challenged. This is just letting you guys know. Every time I read off of my tab, what I'm going to end up doing is, try to get more, savvy and get one of those bigger screens. What do you call those things?
A tablet?
Tablet.
The tablet what was giving me the problem earlier today.
And for next week, guys, of course, you guys know this was pre-recorded because we were having so many technical problems from last week. Please try re-downloading Google Hangout. Like, take it off and re-download it again if you have Google. And then that's what I had to do 2 weeks ago, which made my show late last week, the week before then. So thanks to Tomi, and a lot of you guys have shared some deep conversations. But then a lot of times I'm like, okay, in order to have these kind of conversations, it only makes sense to have it with somebody you can talk back with and have, because you can't only have just your viewpoint. So when I take on a conversation like the serious ones about depression and stuff like that, everyone is like, oh, okay, they're not here. So I'm like, yeah, I battle depression, and it's like, it's kind of hard, so it's like you need somebody to talk, and then they're like, oh, girl, you should have said this. Well, baby girl, click on the link and join me now. I feel like
enjoy the conversation. Absolutely.
But of course, I know for you guys who watched part 1, you guys are like, oh wait, you guys were so off the topic. We were talking about the myth of the strong black woman, and if any of you guys actually watched or watch the first episode. If you didn't, that's okay. I'm going to have the link for you guys down below in the description box. If you want to get a hold, want to join the panel, anything you want to ask me, you're going to find all the information down below. Now, in this, the myth about being a strong black woman article that Ms. Tomi shared, I'm going to start off with, in the beginning, it says, because we have been taught that strength is an adaptive trait, this should be a good stereotype, right? We have survived the trauma of slavery, yet still live in a society plagued by, I can't pronounce it because my, English wasn't my first language, institutional? Yeah, institutional. Oh, I said it right this time. Okay, because I was struggling with it first time because there's certain words I can't say, like soldier, crazy. Institutional and casual racism, sexism, and classism. So we must be tough. Then she goes on in the article to say, when we fight against the standards of beauty, then you have to fight the standards of poverty, fight the standards of coming from either a broken home or a single home, and you have to fight the standards of we are being told that we are being told that our odds of finding love are lower than other demographics. And then you have all these other things that they talk about, and they show you all these different graphs. So, and then they talk about, your mental state and all these different things. So before we go any further, because we were trying to get you on last time, and, Markeisha speak.
It wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do agree that it's difficult, and you're looking at so many different tiers of socialism, classism, true, absolutely. But as black women, as women in general, we're already empowered. We give life. So we already have a strength about us. And if you have a strong mother, whether she's black or otherwise, they're usually instilling in you, yes, you want the knight in shining armor. However, you need to be in a position mentally that if something happens, you can still take care of yourself. At least that's the way I was raised.
Yeah.
My grandmother is Native American and African American, and mixed with a whole lot of other stuff. We already know that. But the biggest thing, my grandmother is like, do not use the excuse that I need a man in order to do anything. You don't need a man for anything. You're capable of everything yourself, with the exception of conceiving. Unless you're Mary Magdalene, obviously, then that's not going to happen. But she's like, you want to put yourself in a position that when you decide you're opening yourself for love, that you're wanting that man, not that you're needing that man. So many of us are like, oh, I want to have this guy who's going to do all these great things, and they have this preconceived fairy tale that the movies portray, that this guy is going to come in, swoop them off of their feet, and it's going to be this to do, and they don't have to do any work. And that's not realism. That is fantasy. And it is so a facade that even the movies don't get it right. So, I look at things and I say, okay, yes, I'm open to love, but I'm open to the real stuff. And I understand it's not going to be perfect. It's not always going to be pretty. But I want that man that's going to be down for me just like I'm down for him. I'm that ride or die chick when I decide I'm going to be that chick. But he's got to be ride or die as well, because we're not going to do no halfway stuff. That's just how I am. So.
No Murray episodes. No.
Exactly. But, I feel like depending on where you're raised, you have some environments that you're capable of having a large array of versatility and cultural experiences. And where I grew up in the country on a farm. Not a lot of versatility in that. And, there's issues that come along with that. So if you're not aware of certain things, there's some things that aren't going to be brought to the table as a normal conversation versus other places. But I feel like if you're open to being an individual and you have a strong personality, that shouldn't be a problem. If the man is a real man, he would be able to accept that strength in you and work with it. And it bothers me when I hear women say, I need a man who can handle me, who can handle my attitude. We are grown women. I don't want to be handled. I want to be loved. I'm not something. I'm a person. So I don't someone handling someone, that to me is like, okay, you're trying to boss. Exactly. Like, that's not a real relationship. Those are not, I don't want to be handled. I don't want that type of relationship. That's a, democracy type something. No, thank you. I want communication. I want a two-way street. So
now, one thing I can definitely say is thank you so much, Markeisha, because you basically said everything me and Tommy said all in one. Bam. And then,
sorry, y'all know I get long-winded. So.
Oh,
no.
So, because sometimes when people see a title, they'll just assume that they can take it so many ways, but you basically molded it where this is the kind of conversation that's gonna happen. So they,
Okay.
because but oh, I'm sorry, Tommy. Did you want to say something?
No, I'm just listening.
Now, I do agree with everything that you said and everything like
Mhm.
that. Hello. And
That is-
what we're going to do this time, because we didn't really get around to doing it last time, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, oh my goodness, you guys got way off a topic. But the reason that me and Tommy ended up getting way off a topic is because at the end of the day, in order for somebody to fully understand what you're talking about, you have to put it in ways where they see it you have to put it in ways where they see it and they can understand it. Just like in that movie, The Time to Kill, when they were like, oh, but it was, and especially when it was back then, they're looking at it like, no, but this black man did this and killed these white young men. Matthew McConaughey was able to say, look, I'm gonna have to find some kind of way to make these people see it and like see it from on this point of view through their goggles. And once he flipped it and said, imagine if it was a white girl.
Cheers.
Since I'm on the health, I'm limiting water for me. I usually take it with the brown, but
hey, I hear you. I hear you.
But so for a lot of you guys, I'm sure you guys can say, oh, you guys ain't talking about and stuff like that. But what me and Tommy was basically trying to say is, look, in all nationalities, regardless, in America or not, we have so many issues going on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the article already tells you, as women, we already have, as black women, but I'm going to say all women too, we already have to deal with having to deal with the society plague of being institutionalized, with casual racism, sexism, and classism.
What do you think she's meaning by casual racism?
What I think she means by casual racism is like what I said on the first video, where I would have, I'm telling you, I've had this happen to me all the time, where I'll have like this white person or somebody who isn't white, regardless, they'll always say, oh, wow, you don't act like, they'll either say the N-word, or they'll either say, or you don't act black.
Oh, I get that a lot. You don't look black. You aren't really black, are you?
You're a safe Negro. I feel safe with you. What it feels like to me. Like,
oh, you're not like those other ones.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's how I looked at it as. Like,
okay.
You're not a threat. Okay.
Right.
You did something with yourself, just like I said in the other video where I was saying that, when I would go for job interviews and stuff like that, based off, because everybody has unique names. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you should not judge people regardless how the name is spelled. You should never judge somebody by their name, because first of all, everybody who lives here didn't start off here. We're not the original people.
Exactly.
Ever, never, there was not one drop of none of us here in the beginning of time. So you can't. If you have exotic names in all different cultures and everything like that.
Agreed.
So a lot of times I would go, like I said in the first video, I would go to job interviews and I would have people talk to me on the phone, and of course I would always have my friends like, oh my goodness, or people, oh my gosh, you sound like a white girl, or you sound like somebody from overseas. And I'm like, okay, So when I would actually, when you have an interview, they'll tell you the position. Are you still interested? What they liked about your the stuff you submitted, and when can you come in for an interview?
Right.
So I already know I'm a candidate. I will come in. They will look at me. Of course, I don't ever come in big hair. Of course, I look professional. There's no Patu, and there's work Patu. Yeah. Everybody got
you gotta cross the lines. You gotta cross the line.
I would go in there just like I was telling Tommy. They would read out all the things I've accomplished and stuff, and I'm like, oh, whoa, 3-point hat.
Right, I sound good on paper, don't I?
Yeah, and then when they would see me, they would. It's like they struggle to find a question, and then the part in the interview where they ask you, okay, what questions do you have? then
Yeah.
I'm always the type that do research on where I'm applying to. So I'm like, okay, well, based on this, how does this look? Is with this, how about the 401k plan? How do you guys do your budgeting? How does someone climb in the in the
The
ladder of this
ladder to
corporation?
move.
Because I'm the person who prefer to start from the bottom, work my way up. Because I would
Right.
like learn what I'm doing instead of just being tossed in and all my.
Right.
And they're like, whoa, you have some very intriguing questions. And then as soon as they say, my full name, where'd you get that from? Where's that from? I'm like, well, my parents are from, overseas. Where? I'm
Why
like,
does it matter? I'm here now. My
Mm-hmm.
parents aren't applying for the job. It matters not.
so once I say where I'm from, they're like, oh, okay, because I assumed you were, Russian. And they'll say everything, meaning they assume I would be white. But I'm like, there's black people everywhere. Just accept it. There's black Russians, black Irish, black everybody. Black is everywhere.
Hello.
And even if you're trying to avoid us, every time you eat chocolate anything, you're taking a bite out of us anyway. So
Exactly.
get over it.
Exactly.
Get over it.
Look at Tommy. She having a fit over there.
Yeah. Because Tommy was saying the same thing when she goes and applies for jobs because, her parents are from overseas. And, of course, for a lot of cultures, you have long names.
Yeah.
So she says she wonders, is it because the person, when they look at it, they're like, oh, this is just too long.
Mm-hmm.
Done with it.
I had a problem like that when I was married. People kept trying to call me Morticia at church because they couldn't get Markeisha. So, and I'm like, okay, my name is not that difficult. It really, really isn't. And, well, do you have a nickname? No, my mother named me Markeisha. That's what you can call me. I don't do nicknames. I don't do it short, any of that. That's what you can call me, and I'll just correct you until you get it right. That's fine. But I don't like when people try to adjust your name for their comfort. It's like, why are you trying? It's another way of trying to change who I am. That's not okay.
Exactly.
So.
And this takes us to the work field. I'm glad that you said that, Markeisha, because it never fails, no matter what I'm doing. May it be in school, may it be at a job place. Every time, because my father named me Patricia Patu Liziak.
Nice.
Interesting.
That's it. So of course people are gonna think, oh, she's Russian. That's my full name.
Okay.
Patty, Trish, Patty Cakes, Pat. And it's like all these different. I'm like, what is that? And then they butcher it so much. And I used to complain to my dad because because at the time I didn't speak English that good. I'm like, they're not calling me Patricia, like, you know what I'm saying? And then when people come to my house, they're like, who's Patricia? I'm like, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't know. I'm like, yo, daddy, cute. Hello. You
Yeah.
know? So now I just say even for jobs, especially when it's jobs where you got, especially depending on the job. If it's customer service job, yes, I will use the name Patu. Why? So in case you want to have a complaint, it takes them a while to just 2 syllables. They're like, pot.
Really?
Like, 2 syllables.
Really?
Patu. And then I was jokes like, if you put it backwards and you add another letter, it's Tupac. I'm like, well, but, thanks, type of stuff, So it's kind of like, it's kind of ridiculous. Riziak, I always have people say Rosario Rodriguez, like everything but that.
Yeah.
And so
That's a frustration.
Okay. Yeah, I could be at the airport, no matter where I'm at. Anytime I hear Rosario. Because you know how back when you were a kid, when you couldn't read something, you just scribble. I'm like, oh, that was me. And I get up, and they're like,
how do you say that? What is your name? Yeah.
Oh, I've been dealing with that since I discovered how to say my name. And even today, when I'm in class, they'll look at my name, and they'll be like, I'm like, that's me. That's me.
Yeah.
That's me.
Like, I already know.
I already know. They're like, oh, how do you say that? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, in my head, I'm like, it doesn't matter how you say it. You're going to butcher it anyway. Just call me Tommy. That's it. Just call me Tommy.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the names, I don't know if you guys saw this video poetry that this girl, I think I think her name was Markeisha or something like that. She did a poetry talking about how people who assume anyone with a Markeisha or Kanisha or anything, you know how in America.
Anything with the Isha, she got to be a ghetto girl.
Yeah, and she was
Oh, that's so irritating.
yeah, and she was just
People
basically
try to go, can I call you Keisha? No. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, no problem. But in the article, not article, in the poetry, she was just saying that little do you know, you guys are trying to break down my name, like you said, or switch it up. My mom named me that name, and she had me to understand as a young black strong woman that this was from this ancestor, which means this represents this from the Indian tribe, this from the African. So that's what it comes down to.
Right, right.
Hello.
Well, everybody's name has meaning.
Yeah.
Everyone's name. And it comes from somewhere, and sometimes it's known, and sometimes, unfortunately, it is not. I have heard of names that they shouldn't be named. There was someone, she named her daughter Latrine. That is a very, yeah. I'm like, if you're anybody who knows anything about the military, you just call this girl a toilet, basically. Like, yeah, not good. But why did you allow, did you not educate yourself? Obviously, you didn't do any research. You didn't check anything out. But there's no such thing as baby books. Look them up.
Exactly.
It's okay. But, my name in English is Markeisha. In Swahili, it's Markeisha. So my family don't call me Markeisha. They call me Markeisha. Really close family calls me Keisha. And it's like cringe every time I hear it. But that's my family. So what you going to say, don't call me that no more? They've been calling you that your whole life. That's not going to happen. But outside of family, Markeisha is it. Or Miss Williams. And I'm good with that too. So that's as good as it goes. Like, the respect will be there, but you have to put your boundaries when it comes to racism, socialism, sexism. You have to know where you stand and stand firm on it and make sure you educate. And that's a lot of the things that half of the issues that we're having now with this racism and with culturally being a strong black woman is too much. I'm strong for a reason, because constantly people are trying to tear me down, tear my culture down, tear women as a whole down. I mean, look at the corporate world. You can be a doctor and have a female doctor. She's going to make less than a male doctor, and she may even have a higher degree, might have a higher rank, but she's not going to get paid as much because she's female. That's sexism. Cut and dry. But don't be a black woman that's a doctor on top of that. Oh, come on.
And depending on your shade, because it like breaks down in so many levels. And that's why, for those of you guys, I know that it's going to say, oh, you guys went apart from what the topic was, but not really. Because just like we're making a point right now, like, it's so many with racism and everything else that comes along with it for a black woman. You can't just pinpoint it with just one thing, because it's like, you know how when you're in algebra, no, not algebra, and when you're in science class, you got the one big circle which is the main subject, but you got all these other these lines that extend to other circles. That's like what it really is, because you can't just say, oh, it's just okay, it's like, it's just not that simple.
Right.
And that's why, if you guys looked at the first video when I said that, as women in general, we just started, us having, my generation and stuff being able, and your generation being able to work and doing all those things. This is just new. My mom's generation, that was like, frowned upon, and my grandma's, my grandmother's generation, it was just unheard of. You know what I'm saying? You was either a nurse or a nurse, housekeeper, and that's all that you could do.
Yeah.
And I can't, if I go past my grandmother, that's slavery right there. That's how and before I get any further, that's the thing I don't understand when it comes to people like, oh, it was so long ago. My grandmother, my grandmother was born in 1920. 1920, and she made it all the way to 2000 something. I even met a few, like when I go grocery shopping, I even met a few people that were born earlier than 1920 still living to this day, and they're so shocked on how the world evolved.
Oh yeah,
But
and those are the people that you really need to talk to. Those
but
are the
people
people
that
that
are
need
like,
to
oh,
learn.
those are people. Those are the type of people that tell you, oh, I've seen somebody hung. You know, I didn't
Oh yeah.
understand what it was about, or you know.
Mhm.
So I'm like, it's not that long ago. But
Well,
at the end of the day, if you're not educating yourself on it, and you're not making it, instead of saying, oh, racism, and have a little conversation and just go away. There's never been a full out conversation with a resolution and saying, okay, now, just like they do in Canada and just like they do in certain parts of Europe, racism is against the law. You just do that, you get
Yes, and Canada is very, very, they take it very seriously in
I
they
love
do
Canada.
that.
not play.
I love that. But this is the problem. Because America has been split, you have the North against the South and all these different things.
Mm,
There's so many. I mean, we haven't even been 60 years. We don't. If you go back 50 years, there women couldn't vote. You
Yeah.
know, about 60 years ago, we couldn't even vote. Our voice was not heard. So
mm-hmm,
we are the women, I believe, have been the backbone of every country. There
mm-hmm,
is not a single country that the man didn't have some strong woman whispering in his ear saying, hey, wait, baby, don't forget about, because I know you want to do this, because we're more empathetic. We see the
right.
things that men are like cut and dry, solid answer, okay, this is the solution. But we look on the emotional end of things and say, okay, wait a minute, what about these people? What about these things? We have to take all these things into consideration
Right.
because we look at more than just ourselves, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is one of the difficult things about being a woman and one of the best things at the same time. We don't put ourselves first. We put everybody else first. And that in
Mm-hmm.
itself is a strength. Because when we're looking at how are we going to make sure the family, you know, when the man decides he's going to drop out, if he chooses he's going to do that, guess what? Mom is mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, and she's the breadwinner, and she's the one who's feeding, and she's the one who's clothing. It takes a strength for that. She's putting everybody else ahead of her,
Right.
and still makes it happen, and doesn't complain.
Mm-hmm.
For me, in that retrospect, it's
Hmm.
just um, it's just so crazy because just like what we were talking about earlier, because like it's already a struggle already being
Oh
a
yeah.
Black American in America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then, because we're divided. Not only Black people are divided, because I don't like it when they say we're the only people that is divided. Everybody in the culture is divided, just in
Absolutely.
different ways. Depend.
Yeah. I mean, you got culture, and then you have classism on top of socialism, on top of racism. You're like, there's, like I said, use all these different things. It's an onion. There's too
Yep.
many layers. It can't just
Too,
be one thing. That's
too many,
impossible.
too
Near
many
impossible.
isms.
Yeah,
Exactly. Like we live in the land of ism. Absolutely.
Yes. And I think Patu touched on this a little bit in the first um part of the show.
Mm,
Um it was like how like black people in general we suppress each other, and
absolutely true.
that's where colorism comes in. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, you're not dark enough, or
Mm.
you're not, you're too light, you're more white, or you act this way, you act that way. I'm like, what does my shade have anything to do with my personality? What does that have to do with anything? And then the problem is, I don't feel like it's, white people segregating us. It's black people in general. We segregate each other.
I think
That.
we make it worse. I absolutely agree with you. I think white people do separate us. I mean, because it's impossible for someone to say, and I don't care who they are, where they come from. Everybody's prejudiced somehow,
yes.
Right, right.
but they don't admit it. You know, I was what we called back in the day, and if you're in the South, it might be relevant. Color struck. I was clueless. We talked about this before. I didn't know I was black. So it wasn't because culture was not part of my life. It just wasn't prominent in my life. my life did not revolve around that black man, that Mexican woman, it wasn't about that. It was, that lady was so amazing, or oh my gosh, that man is a hustler. Don't mess with him. He's not going to give you everything you need for you fixing your car. It was about who they were and what they did. So for me, it didn't make sense. My grandmother, she'd be like, I'm Indian and more, when people would ask her what she was. And I'm like, Grandma, what do they mean? What are you? You're a woman. What are you? You're a girl, right? And it didn't make any sense to me. So Tomi, when I was younger, and I'll say I recognized a little bit later there was differences, but I would say maybe when I was between 5 and 8, I wouldn't have saw you as a black person at all. I would have saw, ooh, that's an Indian, because long hair and darker skin. That's the only thing I would have related it to. And what I did know of black people was always negatively portrayed. It was someone who had no diction, had no vocal education whatsoever, and was the first one, oh yeah, that one, and they're fussing about something that makes absolutely no sense. They're going to go to the one who has no real information and can't articulate anything, and makes them seem worse than what they actually probably are. And some of these people who are on television with these news anchors and things like that, they are intentionally looking for that one person who's going to make a good story versus what the story is really about.
Living in Chicago, you always see cameras rolling, all types of news reports, and I'll talk, and they're like, "Oh, she wasn't that nigger I needed. Let me go to the next person. No, Joe Tomi got shot, boy. Shout out to my mom." I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? Exactly.
Yep.
There. You know?
Sad, but true.
I'm glad that you touched on that, because when Raven Simone said on Oprah, "I'm not black," you had something. Yeah.
There was a lot of people got mad about that.
But it's like, first of all, you cannot place a label and a title on somebody that, first, they're human. That's it. We're all human.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what color my skin is. It doesn't even matter if Jessica had 6 titties and I had 2. We're human beings. It just means she can feed more kids than me. You know? So that's why, to me, it's just so weird. And I agree with you. Like, growing up, I didn't know I was black. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that and let me make this clear, people. Just because I said, and just like Markeisha said, we didn't know, and people who say that I'm not black, or just because I didn't know I'm black, doesn't mean you're not black.
No. I take complete pride in knowing that I'm a black woman.
You know?
But the difficulty with saying I'm a black woman, and I will say the separation that I feel in putting just that label, because my family is so mixed, I feel like sometimes I'm being forced to eliminate some of the family that I do have, the blood that is in me. And I'd rather say I'm a black woman than say I'm an African American woman. I am not from Africa. I don't have any people that I know directly that are in my line in the immediate family that are from Africa. Yes, I know I hail from there. That's where my people hail from. But if I go to Africa right now, I'm not going to be accepted as African. I'm going to be that black woman from America. That's it. And it's not going to be a direct, oh, this is my sister. It's more likely I will find that in a community here somewhere in the States, but there's still a separation amongst, because of being here in the States more longer and having different just experiences. I don't understand the struggles of someone in Africa. And a lot of people make these negative assumptions. Oh, you're from Detroit. Well, I'm not really from Detroit. Detroit is where I can get someone to recognize the general area, the demographic of where I'm from. I'm about 40 minutes from Detroit. Am I a hood girl? No, but I could have been. I grew up in a place called Saginaw. If you ever heard of Flint, those are some of the roughest places that you can grow up in. Like, the cops are afraid of the people of the city. So could I have been that chick? Absolutely. But I made a choice. There's places in Africa the same way. They make choices. I want to have a better life, so I'm going to do something. But that takes a strong mind.
Yeah.
And as a woman, I say, as a black woman, yes, I choose to be that strong black woman. But I'm not going to be the ignorant strong black woman, that ghetto strong
Stereotype
black
that they
woman.
put in the media.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And there's a difference. And I think what, at least from the beginning so far of the article, it's showing or saying that there's a negative
Oh,
association.
thank you for saying that, because before you get to that, that's what I was going to do. I was going to reread it. It says,
Okay.
because we've been taught that strength is an adaptive trait, this should be a good stereotype,
It
right?
should be. It
But the
should
crazy
be.
thing is, just like I was saying, the point I was trying to make in the first video when I was telling Tommy that at times when I go out, I do people watch, where I'll see, if especially when you see huge groups, you'll see
Oh,
the
that's my
groups do
favorite.
the same thing, but then you'll see persecution based on different groups because of the area, the
Mhm.
color, and the
Mhm.
finance. Like, what type of place is that type of place?
Yeah.
So it makes
Absolutely.
me wonder that, because as women we have to be strong regardless, just color, whatever. That's just how we have to be. But at the end
Mhm.
of the day, it's like, is it the fact that the way I express my strength, I have to be considered an angry black woman, crazy
Mm.
black woman? What is it that I'm doing so different that every other woman is doing?
Right.
The
Nothing.
same thing, but just like that study that was on CNN with that fine, sexy guy. What's his name? Sexy guy. He had a show too, that with the white hair. Anderson. Anderson.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Andrew Anderson, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. No, Anderson Cooper.
Anderson
Mhm.
Cooper. Okay.
I
Okay.
love
Okay.
Anderson. You just so sexy. Ooh, I
Yeah,
would.
he's a handsome fella.
You know,
Mhm.
but he had did a few series where he was showing like racism starts at home, whether the parents
Absolutely.
know this or not. And
Absolutely.
he was showing the same scenario, the same setup. But the only thing was he was switching colors. So he had one where the president was white, and then one where the president was black. He asked every kid of all color and all ages, which one do you think will be a better president? They kept pointing to the white president. And he
Mm.
asked them, well, why? Well, because, all the presidents were white, and, they're educated, and, all these things that they're hearing on news, hearing their
No.
parents talk about,
It's what mom and dad are talking about out loud, and they think their kid isn't listening.
or
That's what's happening.
the people that are around their kids.
Yes.
And then what was so interesting was he said he didn't understand why, when it was minority kids, especially black kids, why they didn't pick the black president. They said, oh, well, because he's dark, he's probably doesn't have a mom or a dad. And it's like stereotype already starting from dot one.
Yep. Yep.
I'm lucky. I'm one of my generation. Some of them, because some of them I'm like, really, really, why? But I was lucky, just like you said. You grew up not knowing you were black. I didn't either, because growing up, my parents weren't, hey, you black woman, hey, you black father. It wasn't like that. My mom
Mm.
was mom. My dad was dad.
Yep.
If anybody said, oh, what are they? Oh, I'm Haitian. Oh,
Mm.
I'm Cuban. Only
Right.
in America is where they break it down more.
Yeah. Why it's a issue or a deal. It's a big deal.
In other
And
countries, it's not like that.
it's not at all. But maybe I
It's
need to
all,
move to Canada, huh?
girl, it's all they break. First of all, they don't identify people by color. They identify people by their nationality or where they're from.
Yes. Yes.
And the only segregation that they have over there, yeah, you do have some racist people and everything based off of history situations. So,
Right.
things like that. So it breaks down to that. And before I get push off, I don't know if you guys saw that part where when Rihanna didn't know about the history about Harriet Tubman, they were giving her a lot of flack about it.
No, I didn't
Yes,
know.
I was so pissed off about that. I'm like, this girl did not grow up in America. She grew up in the islands. So, I mean, what did you expect? Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
what did you expect? Like,
Exactly.
that's the problem with certain black people. They expect that all black people got to know history. Like, honestly, to tell you the truth, I I didn't know much about Black history, even though I was born here, I was raised here, and but my parents are African. I know more about African history than I know about African American history, and then sometimes,
Right.
like Markeisha says, she says she can't call herself African American. I can call myself African American because I come
Mhm.
from African descendants, even though I was born in
Exactly.
America. And
Exactly.
I'm like, what? I'm like, that's why in school, even in college, I would never take African American history or literature because it didn't interest me. I knew about it, but it didn't interest me. So
Mhm.
the fact that they gave her slack because of that, shame
Mm.
on them because she is from another country. She lives on an
Exactly.
island. African American history has nothing to do with her. It kind of does, but I'm saying in the sense where it doesn't have to deal with her because she is from another country. She is from Barbados. She
Mm.
knows only about Barbadian history.
Yeah.
Mhm.
African
Mm.
American history is not really her forte because she's not African American.
Right. And that's a stereotype that a lot of black people tend to push. And what's funny to me is half of the time they don't know all of the facts correctly at that. So I feel like,
Exactly.
okay, as an entertainer, she should have a little more information just because her consumers are who she's talking to. And if she didn't know that, usually I would think, and you might be able to help me with this, Patu, I think when you're doing an interview, usually they give you an outline of the things they're going to talk about, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes,
Yeah.
but a lot of times they have that trick me where they give you something and then
Okay.
the as the interview goes is nothing like that. You're like, wait, where's the
Okay.
so
Right, this is off topic. Okay, well that happens. But I would think with her, she would want to know a little bit more because the majority and we can't say all because obviously she's international, but I would think that if she went to Japan, okay, let me learn a little bit about the Japanese people. Go to Korea, let me learn a little bit about these. What are the prominent basic facts?
yeah,
There's things about every single country that you can learn about, and if you want to know more, you can. But a lot of times, I feel that with African American history, it is so sad and it is so painful to look at and to let alone have had people you have experiences with that are direct lines of your descendants. They are
Mhm.
difficult to look at. It's difficult to look at movies that show those histories of pain. Though I mean, to relive that, who wants to relive that? You don't really want to, but it's important to know.
yeah,
This is why these people fought so hard. This is why people marched. This is why people protested. That's important information to know. Do you have to know every single fact? No. But you should know a few things. Now, can she be belittled for that? I don't think so because, as Tommy said, it's not her direct history.
yeah.
So that'd be like sending me out to Korea and saying, well, who was the emperor back in, 1528? I don't know. I couldn't tell you who I can tell you anything about it, but if he was cute, I can tell you that. That's all I can. You got some information on the fashion? I might be able to help you with that. What about the hairstyles? But you want to ask me about real history with that? I can't help. I can't
Mhm.
be. Don't expect it. But that's what we as people do. We have unrealistic expectations
And
on other
can't
people.
even take care of the simple stuff. Start with the
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I mean, and that right there can take us to a whole nother thing. Because if I'm talking about socialism in America and we're talking about history, I have a whole lot to say about how much money we're spending in other countries, and we have people right here that are homeless, who are
Mhm.
hungry. Kids can't get halfway decent school lunches and are barely getting a week of black education for Black History Month, which is the shortest month. And it's,
See,
I can go for days on that, lady. So we
I'm
got to
glad
get
you
back to
said that.
topic.
I'm so glad that you said that. Well, before I get to that part, my
Mm,
dad, when he came to America, that was the first time he ever was called a black man.
mm.
And that was his first time him ever being called a boy. So he was like, what the? So it's not until he was,
Woo!
yeah. So he had to learn English first. Then once he, and mind you, it was his boss that said, "Boy, wash these dishes." So he's thinking like, I'm a grown man. He worked his
Right.
butt off, went to night school, got his degree, learned English, turned around. That same dude that was washing dishes by hand at the Hilton Hotel ended up becoming the boss of that guy.
Hey now.
He
Go
said,
ahead, Daddy.
he said he never,
Good job,
every time
Papa.
that guy would see my dad coming around, he would always be squeezing his butt and like, oh my gosh, I used to talk down to him and my dad was like, he just would come around, tell him what he needed to do because he didn't need to belittle him. He didn't need to do that because at the end of the day, I'm your boss. I get to say where you cannot go. But I'm not going to put you down for it. I'm not going to make you less than. But every day you're going to think to yourself, damn, that person was a better person for me for a Negro.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And at the same time, speaking about the whole Rihanna thing, in America, Black history, like slavery happened everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. So it's like it's not fair because when you say that, well, how about the history of everybody else? Because the same stuff that happened in America
happened in Cuba.
Yeah,
happened in the islands.
Christopher Columbus just went ballistic.
Right. Right.
They want people there too, like all types of stuff over there. So to me, like growing up, after my dad seeing like, whoa, this is nothing like back home. Yeah, there's racism everywhere. So he dealt with the racism of being dark. But when you live in an area where you got all shades, it's no big deal. Everybody know everybody. It takes a village to raise a child. So they grew up. Everybody know each other.
Yeah.
And so for him, he was like, you know, to prepare my kids because now apparently they're Black instead of just people.
Yeah.
You know, who happen to be of a descendant. Let me educate my kids about Black history so they know where they came from first. They know where they're going because they're here. So that way they can be prepared.
Yeah, so and there was a purpose behind what he was doing. You know, he's like, yes, I want to teach you Haitian history. I want to teach you Cuban history, and you need to know where you were, and you need to know why I came here for a better opportunity for you guys. And that's pride, and that's something to be. You know, I would love to have that type of history. I don't have that. Typical African American, unfortunately, stereotypical single parent household and all of that, but it's a choice. Because your father made the choice, I'm going to leave, Cuba, correct? So I made the choice, I'm going to leave Cuba and I'm going to make a better life for my kids and for my family. Now I have this other thing to add to it, but because he was able to give you that, you saw how hard he worked and what he had to go through. That makes you work that hard.
Yeah.
You know, there's something different for you to be able to instill in your children. I had to do the single mom, grandmom helping mom raise, aunties helping mom raise, and looking at a different type of strength. But it still built a strong Black woman. The reason that we are strong Black women is because we had strong men, which is your dad, or strong women to help mold us to be that. It was a choice, because you can choose to be a lazy Black woman. You can choose to be a gold-digging Black woman. You can choose to be, we all have choices. And it's what do you want someone else to view you as? How do you perceive yourself? Because if you don't perceive yourself as something important and valuable, if you can't be strong within you, nobody's gonna see it anyway, and they're gonna treat you like the crap that you're saying that they can treat you like.
Yeah.
If you don't say I have value, they're not gonna value you.
And I'm glad that you said that because I'm so surprised on how many women of color, because I'm not going to just say Black women, because I've seen it in Hispanics, I've seen it in some Asian girls, some Asian, a little bit in everybody.
Yeah.
And Tyra Banks, Top Model, when they did their show and they took it over, I don't know what country they were. I don't know if they were in Asia or something like that. No.
Japan.
When they were giving makeovers to the little girls, were crying because they felt like they weren't pretty, and they're like, "Why are you not pretty?" Because they're comparing themselves to white Barbie.
Ah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Because they're growing up just like how my daddy was like, baby, you are beautiful. My dad and my mom would put that in my head every day.
Mhm.
Just like I was telling Tommy, my dad was deep chocolate. So to us growing up because everything represents something different. In America, the darker you are, the more negative. The
Yeah.
lighter you
Mhm.
are, well, less. And
Mhm.
where I come from, the darker you are, you're more rich, you're
Yeah.
not tainted, you're more stronger. It's like all the
You're
great,
more pure. You're more
yeah,
pure. Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just so crazy. But I'm
It
glad that
is.
to that because right now, guys, we thank goodness for Tommy, and thank goodness for Mrs. Markeisha Williams because
No,
this
not Mrs. I ain't married to nobody. I'm single people. I'm single fellas.
well, Markeisha Williams, because this was the segment where we're talking about part two, where it's mainly about breaking down the stereotypes of what makes us have to be stronger. Not just saying we're better than any other women out there, but what we have to deal with
Right.
Mhm.
in a country where, let's just face it, just like Kanye West said. I'm not gonna say. Well, Bush didn't give a damn about black people, But at the end of the day, America really don't give a damn about us. Like they really don't. If they
Mhm.
can benefit, they will, but they really don't care about us. But
No.
Right.
but not everybody who's not black thinks like that, because But I'm gonna hurry up and end this because we're going to start part three, where we're gonna break it down about the challenges of dating.
Oh gosh.
Mm.
Y'all ready?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Y'all ready?
All right.
All
Mhm.
right, so guys, tune in. Thank you for watching. Everything you need to know, as usual, description down below. Anything you guys want to say or sound off, instead of you saying, "Oh, I didn't agree" and all that, come join me. I always post a link. Follow me. Do what you got to do. But I'm gonna hurry up so we can get to the date.
Part 3. Let's date.
Mhm.
All right.